Press the right one. Good morning, Parent Tween Connection. We are coming to you with one of my new favorite people. Yesterday, we had Ashley Jordan and Joe Constantine, who are both trusted experts with us. And as y'all know, Joe is actually also my husband and business partner. But today, I have a new friend, and I love new friends, especially new friends who are doing things that I think are super cool that I actually wish I had done like 15 years ago. That was literally the first thing I said to Drew Boudreau when I met him. He is the owner of College Audition Pros. They're based out of New York City, and they focus on helping college bound musical theater, vocal theater, instrumental music students in navigating everything in the audition process, which, if you've been through it, I've been through it. It's crazy. I wish I had Drew when I was there 25 years ago. Well, yeah, 25. So I'm thrilled to have you, Drew. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, I am delighted to be here. What an intro.
So, quick background, you have your undergrad, you told me, in musical theater, or is it stage management? What was it?
Yeah, my undergraduate degree is in theater. It's a general BA theater studies degree.
Okay. And so for those of you listening, Drew went the route, the maybe what many of us here, the smart route of like stage management, and had a career in that, but then realized really his calling is to be on stage, and then realized his calling is to help other people who also want to be on stage. And as someone who rather likes being on stage myself, that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about how to audition for theater colleges. So I imagine there are some crossovers into the music world or the dance world, any of the performing arts, but we're going to focus mostly in on theater because that's what you specialize in. So talk to me about starting early.
Well, starting early, I think, is so crucial. I mean, and this goes to all the parents of teens and tweens who are going for everything else too, business, English, nursing, whatever. Is you really want to start looking at schools in terms of like having a completed list by like February or March of your junior year, and you might say, "Oh my gosh, well that's so far away." It is. You're not wrong about that.
And it's so not at the same time.
That's right. In this process, it's like what parents say about kids, like the days are long and the years are short.
Right.
You'll be like, but September is so far away, and then you blink and it's there. And especially if you're the parent of a theater person, but you are not a theater person, a lot of this goes over your head. And you feel like you're out of control and you want to help your kid. You don't have the vocabulary to do so. That's why starting early is such a benefit to a parent of a theater kid, is you don't have to learn so fast and furious. You can pace it out a little bit more. And ultimately what that does is that gives you the mental bandwidth to help your kid more, to make more informed choices about schools and programs and cost and everything else.
Well, and I know, having been through this ourselves, like all of the things that apply to a quote unquote regular college admissions application apply, grades, GPA, all that. But this is really like a specialized arena for the extracurriculars. It's not dissimilar to athletes having a very specific athletic, process. We don't necessarily have the NCAA in the performing arts world,
right?
But there's extra things to consider. So So you said having a list of places you'd like to apply by February or March of your spring year, or February, March of your junior year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that means 12 to 20. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of schools. And again, it is. If you're hearing this and you're like, oh, this is so much extra, then yes, you're absolutely right. A typical college applicant has like 7 or 8 schools. But because you're going in with your academics as your first kind of trial by fire, and then your audition is the second, and then the last piece of the puzzle is, wow, Clarissa's smart and her audition was great. Can we use her in our program? I don't know. And the same can be said of sports. You might be the best running back on the market, but if TCU is full of running backs, they need a quarterback. And so that's why we apply to so many schools, is so that you have a place to land. Having your schools picked out, 12 to 20, making
Okay.
sure it's a nice mix, a potpourri of reach schools, like the schools that are like the New York Yankees of theater schools, like Michigan
No,
and
you
Tisch.
you really mean the Red Sox of the. I'm just
Oh,
teasing.
no, no, no,
Carry
no,
on.
no. I'm sorry. I didn't say a minor league team that somehow found its way to the majors, Clarissa.
Oh, snap. Okay, now we know where his allegiances lie. So yes, look at the Tish, the
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Michigan, Carnegie, if you're interested in those kinds of programs. And when we talk about reach, fit, and safety, it's different than the vocabulary that academic counselors use. Same words, different meaning. So I might say that Harvard is a reach because you have to have basically a perfect GPA.
sure.
These schools are a reach because everyone is reaching for the same cookie. It's how many bodies are trying to fit through the same door. It's less about talent and more about numbers. So reach schools, fit schools, meaning still great training, fewer bodies trying to get in the same door, and safety, meaning there's either no audition or the audition is for scholarship purposes only.
Got it. Okay, good to know. I actually hadn't heard that, even having been through some of this myself. That's terminology I wasn't familiar with. So, all right, so 12 to 20 schools, a
Yeah.
mix of the reach, safety, and good fits, which
Yeah.
I'm glad you clarified that because Ashley Jordan, who actually kicked us off with the roundtable yesterday, used those exact same terms from a more traditional academic perspective. So it's good to know there's a nuance there. What
Totally.
else should kids be looking at, if anything, in their college selection process or in the getting started early?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they should be looking inward first to see if what the schools that they have their heart set on, is it because it has a big fancy name and it has a storied legacy, or is it because you really want to go there? That's a big difference maker. It's a big
Mhm.
difference maker ultimately in the audition room, because if you're auditioning because, wow, it's really great, and I want to be a part of it, then you're kind of auditioning out of FOMO, and that's not a great place to be,
Mhm.
because you're thinking, oh gosh, I really want these people to like me, and that you can't be an honest truth teller, a storyteller, while you're also thinking, please like me. Um,
Mhm.
but if you know why you want to come to the school, what does it give me in terms of the training that I want, the personal satisfaction? Is it a campus that I think is cool? Do I like the
Mhm.
fact that they have, the annual campus food fight every year? Do I like the fact that they're close to the city that I like? Can I take classes I couldn't take anywhere else, double majoring, minoring, that kind of stuff? If I
Mhm.
know all those reasons for it, I'm going to be a lot more invested and grounded, and my subconscious is going to kick into gear a lot louder. I'm going to be more organized with my applications and my auditions. I'm going to be more grounded in the room.
Mhm.
I'm going to know the faculty already, and I'll feel more comfortable. So
Great.
make sure that your list is comprised of schools that you really want to attend for all the right reasons.
Got it. Okay. So much of what you're saying is in alignment with other folks that I work with, in the college admissions realm. And so it's a different flavor when we've got this particular focus that we'd like to pursue. So I know one of the
Yeah.
other comments that you had mentioned is getting into college for theater is less about talent and more about how you navigate the process. I have an inkling of what you mean, but I want to
Yeah.
hear your perspective first.
Yeah. So you know how the SAT, big secret, is not actually a good measure of your scholastic aptitude.
It's
Um,
not. As the SAT coach? Yes, agreed.
uh, I will say the ACT is a little more straightforward,
A little bit.
um, but the SAT is really how well do you do on this test.
Mhm.
Um, and so you could be the brightest person in your class and not have the best score on the SAT because you're
Great.
looking for straightforward answers. Um, So college auditioning is the same thing. You can be the most talented person uh, in your school and still get into no schools, no colleges, um, because it's about this process. So just as an example, I had a student who already had Broadway credits when she came to me at 17. Um, and she was very, very talented. And she was already working professionally outside of New York by then. She had agents and managers. She had a letter of rec from James Lapine, who, if you're not familiar, is the book author of Into the Woods and the Falsettos. And she didn't get into any of her schools. Now, I had another kid, same year, who had only ever done show choir, never done a play ever, and decided like first semester of senior year, I think I want to go into musical theater, got into all of their schools. Now,
Wow.
the reason is Broadway kid was like, I'm only going to apply to these 5 or 6 colleges. Again, the Syracuses, the Ithacas, the Tishes. And I'm going to do what I think, I'm going to do whatever, songs and monologues I want to do. And I'm not going to ask for anything, any feedback. Show choir kid knew that they didn't know what they were doing. And so show choir kid was a lot better about listening, about asking me, okay, how many schools should I be applying to? What should I be doing right now? Da, 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 da. And so because you had these 2 different people following different sets of sort of instructions, one did well and the other didn't. Now, objectively, one had more talent than the other did. But because they didn't want to accept that this process is different than a Broadway call, it didn't serve them.
I've heard the same thing in the athletic world. My husband has worked with college-bound athletes for the last decade. And it's the same thing. It's how do you engage with the people along the way, and how, things like sending thank you notes after a visit, or picking up the phone to call and inquire about, things about the program. Can you add to any of that? Like things that you say, hey, like what were some of the actions, if you can share that show choir kid did that Broadway gal did not?
Yeah. Well, for sure, keeping to a recommended number of schools, a broad list, and a potpourri of school types. And then also, after you audition, you might get put on this thing called the wait list. Now, the wait list, of course, this exists in the academic setting as well.
Sure.
If Clarissa decides to apply to UCLA for English or something, like, oh, cool, you're waitlisted. Now, most of my kids get in academically, no problem. But if Clarissa and I both audition for Tisch or something, and they say, Clarissa, you're in. Drew, you're on the wait list. So this is something that I tell all of my students to do, and this worked for Show Choir Kid. When you're on the wait list, your job isn't to wait. It's on the school. They're waiting to hear if Clarissa is going to take their offer.
Right.
So while I'm on the wait list, I'm going to let them know that I really want to come to their school. And I'm going to send them 1 or 2, maybe 3 letters, a paragraph each. Thanks for letting me audition. I'm really interested in your school. They get that 2 or 3 times. And then the second that Clarissa says, you know what, I'm not going to come to your crummy school, take someone else, they'll say, hey, Drew's really been contacting us a lot. I think he really wants to come here.
Absolutely.
Bam.
Absolutely.
And if I'm really serious, in my 3rd letter, I'm going to say I'm ready to put down a deposit. And that way they know that I'm not playing games.
That's like the college equivalent of getting down on one knee, like on the first date or something, or the second date. My goodness. But hey, if you've got a goal that you want to go after, and you know that that's where you really want to go, why wouldn't you?
Absolutely. That's it, man.
So,
So don't be idle on the wait list. Let them know that you really still want to attend. It feels weird, admittedly, to just write people kind of unsolicited and be like, I like your school. But it's the only way that they know.
That is awesome. So do you have any tips for, like, I know one of the things that you do in supporting students to Broadway Gals Experience's point is you help them select the music, you help them select the monologues, you help them select the Shakespeare excerpt that either the schools are looking for or is appropriate to the student, or a combination of the 2 of them, that kind of deal. But let's talk about like the audition itself. Do you have any suggestions? And I will acknowledge that this is kind of a self-serving question, because I'm curious what you have to say about stage fright. Because when I played my clarinet or I'm doing public speaking, I'm fine. But oh my goodness, you put me in front of a microphone with my quartet and ask me to sing, and like my voice just leaves my body. So I admit I'm kind of intrigued.
You know, there are a million ways that work for a million people. So
Sure.
I will just say, you know, these are what I find works for me as a
Mhm.
performer, and has worked for my students, which is, you know, understanding that a school will either like you or not like you. I mean, 99% of the time they like you. Doesn't mean they can take you.
Right.
Um, so your job as an actor is just to go in there and honestly communicate with your scene partner about what you want and use your tactics to try and get it. When you do that and you're not thinking about, do they like me?
Mhm.
Your nervous system is more relaxed. Your muscles are more relaxed,
Mhm.
and those notes that were difficult for you because they're high are suddenly a lot easier
Mhm.
because all the tissue isn't going, do they like me? It's I'm asking for this thing from a scene partner.
Sure.
So, you know, be in as much of the scene as you possibly can, and know that you have done everything that you can possibly do. So if you don't get in, it's not because of your work. It's because of what they have on their end. Again,
Mhm.
we already have 5 wide receivers. You're the best wide receiver we've ever seen, but I really need a defensive tackle.
Right. Right. And I've seen that happen certainly more in the athletic world. You know, with one of my husband's clients was a really strong hockey player and had
Mm,
his heart set on BU, turned down offers at other schools where that he just didn't want to go there. And he got to BU and he tried to walk on. And the coach looked at him and was like, "What are you doing here? You're a great player. I wish I could put you on my team, but I already have X number of players who do what you do as well or better than what you do. And it's not that I don't want you, it's that I don't have a place for you on my lines."
yep.
And I hadn't thought about that. Certainly I can see that um in the musical theater world, you know, from my experience going into music production, you know, audio engineering,
Yeah.
I still had an audition, and I think there's, you know, there were reasons that I was a good fit in that department, but I can certainly see it, you know, if you have an imbalance of, you know, gender or something like that, or imbalance
Yeah.
of voice ranges in the musical theater or the operatic world, that
Right.
totally makes sense. So
Absolutely. And
awesome.
a lot of these schools have planned their seasons out 2 years in advance. So sometimes they're casting for particular shows for a couple years. And
Right.
so they'll be like, you know, we're doing Les Miserables, but we don't have a Valjean anymore because the guy that we picked the show for transferred out. So now we're looking for a high rock tenor. Sorry, best soprano we've ever seen. Can't take you.
Right. I didn't know that they planned the shows that far in advance. That's,
Yeah.
again, good insight for folks who aren't in that world, especially the parents who are like, how do I even navigate this if they've never gone through any of the arts aspect at all? So cool.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things that I always like to ask folks, and I realized this morning that I forgot to ask Ashley and Joe this yesterday, but our foundations of connection are the basis of Parent Tween Connection overall. For those who don't know them, they are create a safe place, observe, non judgment, nod and smile, explore, challenge your truths or curiosity, take your time, innovate, own your own story, and then nurture. And so I like to ask our guests if any of those kind of like pop out at you, either personally or relative to the process that you support students with. What do you think, Drew?
I think explore for this particular process. You know, you have to be curious about what you don't know. If you stay in your comfort zone, which is, well, I've heard of these schools, I've heard of, you know, the schools that have the big names. It's a detriment to you. You have to be curious about what's out there and ask. Be bold enough to believe there's a school that has everything that you're looking for.
Oh,
You
yeah.
just haven't heard about it yet. Um, and then you also have to be willing to explore your materials and then willing to explore the scenes and songs themselves as an artist. Because in the room, a lot of times you'll get folks who feedback from the college adjudicators who are like, do that a different way. Give me more anger. tell it to me with more somberness or whatever. And you've got to show them that you are malleable and you are an artist who's eager to explore. If you are saying, oh, I'm too scared, I'm just going to do it the same way, they're going to say, this person doesn't want to grow. I don't really want them on my team.
Yeah, that doesn't show coachability, does it?
Right.
And
Exactly.
that's, my goodness, in any team sport, whether we're talking, Les Mis, or we're talking, last week with the Bills and the Bengals, right?
Gosh, yeah.
Right. Any team sport, everyone plays their part. Everyone has to adjust to the team and think on the fly. I mean, the football players there were great examples of, you think on the fly and you protect your team, and
that's right.
And you work together. I joke in my quartet with the role that I play, I'm the lead. I'm sure that shocks you, but I tell them, I tell my teammates, I'm like, you know what? One of the things that they say about being a leader is to surround yourself with people who make you look good. And I have chosen well. Thank you. You make me look good. And I think it's the same thing on a stage with a musical theater production.
Totally.
Our job is to make everybody look good.
Absolutely.
and to give in so doing, give our audience an experience that they're never going to forget.
That's exactly it. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, Drew, we could talk forever. I am going to make sure, folks, that Drew's website, College Audition Pros, is in our comments here. If you've got students as young as even 8th and 9th grade who are wanting to explore this process and see, one thing that I will say as somebody who has a music degree that doesn't make my living in the world is I wish I hadn't had people tell me that you can't make a living in this world, because the fact of the matter is we are consumers of art and entertainment. Why shouldn't your kid be the next one to participate in that, in some fashion?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And maybe it ends up being community theater long-term because they do decide to go get some other more traditional style job. But my goodness, the gifts that they've given, I know for you and me and anybody else who's an artist or a performer, those are lifelong gifts,
Absolutely.
So,
also, it doesn't matter what your bachelor's degree is in, everybody. Do what you love.
There you go. True statement. All right. We're going to wrap this up. For anyone who is part of Parent Tween Village, Drew and I are going to be live in our Parent Tween Village Facebook group in about 5 minutes. We're going to be talking about agents and managers and when to know that you should have one, when to know that maybe you don't, and a little bit of ins and outs, I think, on some of the compensation that they ask or offer. So if you've got a kid who's really going down that direction, this is something you want to tune in for. So Drew, thank you. And I'll see you again in just a couple minutes.
Okie dokie. Bye.
Thanks.